Have you ever found yourself, I don't know, endlessly scrolling through screens of app icons just trying to get one simple thing done? There's this growing feeling, maybe a digital fatigue, a sense that something's just fundamentally off with how we interact with our computers these days.
Yeah.
Well, today we're diving deep into a really fascinating piece called Browser Wars Got Personal. It unpacks exactly that feeling, and it offers a pretty compelling vision for where our digital lives might be headed next.
Indeed. And what's really fascinating here, I think, is how the article highlights this quiet revolution that's underway. We seem to be moving beyond an era dominated by, individual apps. We're heading towards a world where AI is profoundly reshaping our most fundamental digital gateway, the browser. So our mission in this deep dive is basically to understand the drivers behind this huge shift, introduce you to the key players in what the article calls Browser War 3, and explore what all that means for how you will interact with technology probably every single day.
You get ready for some surprising facts, maybe some insights that'll make you look at your phone, your computer, in a totally new light. This isn't just about the latest tech gadget. It's really about a core change in how you'll get things done, from work to play. Okay, so the article kicks off by challenging something we've all just gotten used to, the app-centric era. It argues that this model, which has pretty much dominated for the last 15 years, right, since the iPhone's big bang of apps, is now, with AI rising, kind of revealing its inherent limitations. Why is this shift happening now? Why is it so profound?
That's a great question because, our brains don't naturally organize life into neat little app boxes, do they? We think more in terms of intent. What do I want to do? Before large language models, LLMs like ChatGPT, apps were really the best tool we had to translate that intent into action. But now that computers can genuinely talk and understand pretty complex requests, we increasingly expect them to just grasp what we want and handle the details. And this, the article argues, creates three critical gaps for AI that need to be closed to really deliver on its promise. First, AI isn't personal enough. It still knows very little about you specifically. Second, AI isn't ubiquitous enough. It doesn't meet you where you actually are most of the time. And third, AI isn't proactive enough. It often tells you what to do, maybe gives you steps, but it often doesn't actually do it for you.
Those three gaps, personalization, ubiquity, proactivity, they feel like clear challenges. But the million-dollar question then is, what platform is uniquely positioned to actually close those gaps? The article points to a slightly surprising candidate, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. The article makes a really strong case that the answer isn't some brand new app or, a futuristic wearable. It's the software we've been using all along, the browser. And there are a few compelling reasons for that. First is what the source calls the context layer. Browsers already gather just an incredible amount of rich data about your habits. Think about it. Your tabs, the domains you visit, cookies, credentials, extensions, bookmarks, your history. They observe how you navigate the web, what you search for, what you ignore, what you keep coming back to. This is basically context engineering in action. It gives browsers these deep, ongoing insights into your preferences and your digital life.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. My browser history sometimes feels like an external hard drive for my brain. But does the article also touch on maybe the potential downsides of giving the browser that much power and insight, the privacy aspect?
That's a really important point. And while the article mainly focuses on the opportunity here, yeah, the privacy implications are definitely a latent concern, something these new browsers will have to address head on. But for now, focusing on that deep context, it leads us straight to the second reason the browser is key. It's where work actually happens for so many people.
Yeah.
The browser stopped being just for browsing a long time ago. It's basically become a quasi-operating system, right? It hosts major productivity tools, Google Workspace, Slack, Figma, Notion, you name it. So it's uniquely positioned to host these new intelligent agents for chat, coding, research, whatever. It can become an active participant in your work, not just a passive window.
Okay, so it's not just a portal anymore. It's more like a digital assistant living right there where you're already doing most of your tasks.
Precisely. And then finally, browsers are cloud native and inherently cross-platform. That's huge. They run everywhere: iOS, Android, macOS, Windows, even, VR headsets. So agents operating within the browser would feel truly ever-present. They'd offer a seamless experience that standalone AI chatbots, often stuck in their own little isolated apps, just can't match.
Right. This combination of factors, the context, the workplace integration, the ubiquity, it really sets the stage for what the article calls Browser War 3. But why are the stakes so incredibly high for this particular battle? What makes it feel like such a winner-take-all scenario?
Well, browsers are just incredibly sticky, aren't they? The longer you use one, the more digital footprints you leave behind. Your profiles, passwords, bookmarks, those extensions you rely on, switching becomes a real pain. Now, imagine adding AI agents that capture all your valuable web behavior, offering hyper personalized services. That stickiness is only going to deepen. It really reinforces that winner take all dynamic. And it's worth noting this intense market concentration isn't purely down to consumer choice either. Operating systems and the original equipment manufacturers, OEMs, often intentionally lock users into their preferred browsers. They do this by restricting which browser engines can be used, sometimes obscuring the default browser settings, or pre installing defaults like Edge on Windows or Chrome on Android, often backed by, pretty substantial financial deals.
Yeah, what's striking, though, is that even with these controlled environments, this current sort of Game of Thrones in web traffic is facing just unprecedented disruption from AI. Let's maybe look at the key players in this high-stakes fight. Chrome is, well, undeniably king right now, commands a staggering 66.5% market share, installed on over 3 billion devices, averaging over 3 hours of daily usage per user. This is incredible. The article even mentions an Apple VC calling Chrome's URL bar the most popular text box on all of macOS, and Satya Nadella admitting that, quote, Google makes more money on Windows than all of Microsoft. Just wow.
Wow, indeed. But even Chrome faces really significant threats. Google's dealing with that big antitrust lawsuit from the U.S. Department of Justice. The DOJ has already ruled Google holds a monopoly in search. And potential remedies, well, they could even force Google to divest Chrome. That's an asset competitors are definitely eyeing. Plus, there's a major business model conflict, isn't there? AI-powered answers directly threaten Google's ad-driven model. If you get the answer directly, you don't click the ad links. That potentially puts something like $26 billion in annual revenue at risk. This probably limits how aggressively Google can push AI innovation at the browser level without, cannibalizing its main cash cow.
Right. And the relationship with Samsung, which has always seemed rock solid and mutually beneficial, that seems to be shifting too. Google pays Samsung billions, right, to make sure Search, Chrome, Gemini are the defaults on over 1 billion Samsung devices.
Right.
But the article notes that Perplexity is reportedly in talks to become the default AI assistant on future Samsung phones, maybe starting with the Galaxy S26 in early 2026. There's even talk of Samsung potentially investing in Perplexity's next funding round. That's a big deal.
Absolutely, a huge potential shift. Then, of course, you have Microsoft and OpenAI. They forged that partnership specifically to counter these kinds of rivalries. Microsoft invested, around $13 billion in OpenAI. They secured exclusive licensing, resale rights, and they've deeply integrated OpenAI models into Azure, Copilot, Bing, and crucially, Edge. This gives Microsoft a really powerful competitive, edge, pun intended, in this emerging AI browser war.
Okay, and then there's Apple. With its famously tight grip on iOS, they require third-party browsers to use their WebKit engine and that deal they have with Google for default search, worth a massive $18–20 billion a year. But Apple seems to be risking falling behind in the actual AI race. Apple Intelligence apparently underwhelms some people. WWDC 2025 felt a bit incremental. The article notes Apple's reported interest in either acquiring Perplexity AI for maybe $14 billion or forming a strategic partnership. It suggests they recognize an urgent need to boost their own AI game and maybe lessen that dependence on Google, even though Perplexity's CEO wants to stay independent.
Right. And while the iOS and Android duopoly has ruled mobile for years, its future isn't absolutely guaranteed either. Challenges are rising. Deutsche Telekom is backing these appless platforms with Perplexity and brain technologies. Huawei is pushing its own AI-driven HarmonyOS, and we even hear about OpenAI and Jony Ive collaborating on some kind of radical AI-native device. Lots of potential disruption. So given this really tightly controlled environment, the big question becomes, how can any new player possibly break through? How do they stake their claim in this landscape that's changing so fast?
Yeah, exactly. So what does all this actually mean for you, the listener, and the browsers you might be using tomorrow? The article gives us this fantastic AI browser market map, highlighting some truly innovative new contenders. And many of them seem to share common features, like a unified Omnibox. This is basically a single input box for everything: search, chat, direct navigation. The aim is to be the one gateway to the web, which could fundamentally change how we interact online.
Yeah, that's a key one. They also often feature sidecar chatbots. These aren't just tacked on, they're deeply aware of the context of your current tab. This lets you do things like @mention another tab or highlight text to feed it directly into the chat. So, for instance, if you're watching a podcast on YouTube, you could ask the chatbot about the host without ever switching tabs or copy-pasting anything. It's a big step up in convenience and sort of integrated intelligence.
Makes sense. And then there's deep personalization. If you're logged into something like, say, ChatGPT, these AI browsers can potentially pull context from your past conversations. This gives the browser real knowledge of your individual needs, your history. Because, as the article puts it, browsers naturally exist one layer above web apps. That makes them inherently more personal than a standalone chatbot could be.
Okay, let's dive into some specific examples that the article mentions. There's Perplexity Comet. This is positioned as an AI-first browser with agentic capabilities. That means it can actually visibly take control of your active tab, that's headful mode, or run tasks in the background headless mode to do things like clicking buttons, scrolling, filling forms. It uses their specialized sonar models, which are AI specifically trained for these automated web tasks. It's impressive stuff, but the article notes it can sometimes be slow or misunderstand vaguer prompts right now.
Okay, agentic browsing. Then there's the browser company's Dia. This one seems to focus more on minimizing user friction and that deep personalization aspect. It apparently proactively asks about your tastes and preferences when you first set it up, aiming for what they call emotional affinity. Which is interesting given how many people treat chatbots almost like pseudo-therapists. That focus on connection could be its niche. But importantly, it doesn't support that agentic browsing yet. You can't tell it to go click things for you. Their roadmap, though, includes a public skills marketplace. Developers could create specialized AI capabilities, like a travel skill for planning trips.
Interesting. Then there's a surprise dark horse the article identifies, Mainfunk Inc.'s Genspark. Apparently, it hit $36 million in annual recurring revenue in under 2 months, which is pretty remarkable traction. It bundles its AI browser with a whole productivity suite, Drive, Docs, Sheets, even integrated calls. A broad strategy, pitting it against giants like Microsoft 365 Copilot. Genspark also reportedly has OpenAI's explicit support, hinting at maybe privileged access to models, and it has a strong foothold in Asia already.
Wow, okay. Another really interesting one is Fellou. This one is described as aggressively autonomous. The article's author shared an experience where they prompted it to reorder something online, and Fellous went ahead and completed the purchase using a saved card, no extra confirmation needed. Whoa! It apparently has a computer use agent that can take actions directly on your desktop outside the browser if you give it permission. It kind of blends robotic process automation, RPA, with AI. But as the article notes, this raises huge trust and safety hurdles. Screen recording, direct computer control. That's a pretty big leap of faith for most users, I'd imagine.
A very big leap. And finally, there's Opera Neon. It's not actually out yet, but it comes from Opera, which has decades of browser experience and a massive user base, hundreds of millions. Their challenge will be proving the value of a potential subscription, managing cannibalization with their existing popular browser, and maybe narrowing down the scope of their many new ideas to really perfect the key use cases first.
Right. It's interesting. The author of the article actually shared their personal experience testing these. They ended up sticking with Dio over Comet for now. And the main reason was apparently that they didn't want all their sidecar chats powered exclusively by Perplexity's models. They preferred using ChatGPT for most things. So Comet's built-in assistant felt a bit redundant, especially since those agentic capabilities are still pretty early days. And this really hits on a point the article makes about the biggest hurdle for all these AI browsers. Truly understanding user intent. It's a genuinely hard problem, right? Figuring out from a single Omnibox query whether you want a classic web search, direct navigation to a site, or a fully AI-generated answer. So thinking bigger picture, beyond just chatting with your tabs, where's all this headed? The article talks about the ultimate goal being something like computer use as the end game. What does that mean?
That's right. Look, AI browsers, even with just basic capabilities, are already a massive leap from standalone chatbots, aren't they? No more awkward copy-pasting paragraphs or uploading PDFs just to give the AI context. But the real frontier, the article argues, is computer use agents. It contrasts this with something like Anthropic's Modular Context Protocol, or MCP. That requires every single app to explicitly support its APIs. It's like trying to create a USB-C standard for AI, a huge coordination challenge. Browsers, though, are already the de facto MCP for the entire web. Why? Because they run on top of the Document Object Model, the DOM. That's a universal interface that allows these agents to read content, extract information, and even act on web pages without needing explicit permission from every single website.
Okay, the DOM gives them power over the web. But even browsers hit a wall, right? The DOM ends where the web ends. Native apps, desktop software. What about those?
Exactly. That's the limit. The DOM doesn't cover native apps or desktop software, and that's where these computer use agents really come into play. These are systems designed to operate directly in what's called the pixel space. Basically, screen images become their input, their observation. And mouse movements, keyboard inputs, screen coordinate clicks, those become their actions. They don't need APIs. They simply see what we see and do what we do. Move the mouse, click a button, type a command.
Wow. Okay, this vision of computer use as the end game, that really does start to sound like science fiction. Who's actually working on making this a reality?
Pretty much every major AI lab is chasing this. OpenAI with something called Operator, Anthropic with computer use, Google DeepMind has Project Mariner, Amazon's working on Nova Act, ByteDance has UI TARS, even Apple has Ferret UI. And independent labs like General Agents, Adept, Similar, they're also moving incredibly fast. Andres Karpathy nailed it when he said, projects like OpenAI's Operator are to the digital world as humanoid robots are to the physical world.
Mhm.
And his point was the digital world will get there much faster because, as he put it, flipping bits is somewhere around 1,000x less expensive than moving atoms.
That's a great analogy. So imagine the possibilities.
Yeah.
What would these computer use agents actually do for you in practice? How would they work?
Well, the vision is they'll become the connective tissue that gets us much closer to artificial general intelligence, or AGI. You could have deep research agents scraping the web for information, coding agents writing software, and then these graphical user interface or GUI agents would glue it all together. They could chain actions across different applications, upload files here, download attachments there, interact with password managers, navigate those clunky old enterprise tools we all struggle with. Now, current GUI agents can be pretty rough, admittedly. The author jokes their grandmother could probably outclick them sometimes, but the progress is undeniable. Systems like OpenAI's ChatGPT agent are already combining vision, text understanding, and even terminal command capabilities. The line between these agentic chatbots and the AI browsers we talked about is definitely blurring, but proximity to the user being embedded right where the user works, like a browser, that tends to be a winning advantage historically.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's bring it back. What does this all mean for your digital future? As the article asks, who wins this race? The AI labs or the browser companies?
Yeah, that's the big question. Ultimately, both chatbots and browsers seem to be converging towards one singular goal: be the user's default interface for interacting with AI every single day. Whoever wins that race essentially becomes your new homepage, your new search engine, and your main productivity environment all rolled into one. The article suggests, tentatively, that the AI labs might be best positioned. Why? Because they have direct access to the most cutting-edge models and the vast compute resources needed to train and run them. So all eyes are definitely now on OpenAI's rumored browser project.
And here's maybe a final provocative thought for you to consider as we close out this deep dive, something the article hints at. Imagine a future where your browser doesn't just mediate your experience of the web, it actively curates it for you. Picture your browser's homepage evolving into this unified, deeply personalized content stream. It's discovering, filtering, remixing, maybe even transforming content from all your favorite apps and sources into one place. And crucially, what if this whole experience is driven by paid subscriptions, rather than by advertising or monetizing your data? Could the algorithm powering your personal feed then genuinely reflect your actual interests, your values, your tastes, instead of just optimizing for endless engagement? How much value would you place on having a truly authentic, personalized home feed for the entire internet? Something to think about.